Have you ever felt surrounded yet completely alone, like the very people closest to you are quietly working against you? It's a strange kind of betrayal, one that doesn't come with a knife to the back, but a smile to the face. You share your wins, they go quiet. You open up, they change the subject. You fail, and somehow they seem a little more at peace. It's subtle, it's quiet, but deep down you feel it. The air shifts, the room chills, and you start to question whether the people in your life are truly for you or just around you. The truth is, not everyone who calls you friend is your ally. It's a Satan dogma. Some are just keeping you close to monitor your progress. Some want front row seats to your downfall. Others are just using you as a mirror, so they don't have to look at their own stagnant reflection. It's painful to admit, especially when you've given them your time, your loyalty, your energy. But here's the deeper truth. The wrong people will destroy you slowly, not with obvious attacks, but with tiny, consistent poisons: doubt, distraction, and depletion. And if you don't cut them off, they'll suffocate your potential before it ever sees the light. This isn't paranoia. It's self-preservation. Machiavelli understood something most people refuse to face. Your enemies are rarely outside your walls. They're within them, wearing familiar faces, laughing at your jokes, sitting at your table. Power doesn't disappear because of opposition. It collapses under the weight of misplaced trust. You cannot rise when you're carrying the dead weight of people who are secretly rooting for you to fail. And the most dangerous ones? They're not loud. They're not obvious. They blend in. That's why you keep doubting your gut. That's why you keep making excuses for them, but every time you ignore that feeling in your chest, you shrink a little. You move slower. You stop shining so bright. But what if you could change that? What if you could clear the noise, cut the anchors, and move forward with complete clarity? What if the freedom, focus, and inner peace you've been chasing isn't out there somewhere, but on the other side of letting go? That's the reward. That's the power waiting for you. The moment you stop trying to fix the unfixable and start protecting your energy like your life depends on it, because it does. In this video, you're going to learn the 3 most dangerous types of fake friends: the silent competitors, the emotional saboteurs, and the opportunists, so you can identify them, outgrow them, and finally move into the next chapter of your life with strength and certainty. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about bitterness. It's about clarity. If you've ever felt held back, drained, or stuck in cycles you can't explain, this is the knowledge you've been waiting for. Watch until the end, because cutting them off might just be the beginning of everything real. They say jealousy is loud, but the most dangerous envy is silent. It hides behind polite smiles and hollow praise. You won't hear it in their words. You'll feel it in their energy. These are the people who pretend to support you while secretly hoping you slip. They clap when you're watching but roll their eyes when you turn away. They ask how you're doing, not out of care but curiosity. They want to know if you're still ahead of them, still shining, still growing. And if you are, they smile, but it doesn't reach their eyes. These are the silent competitors, the ones who view your success not as inspiration but as a threat. They don't challenge you to grow. They compete in shadows. You mention a win, they counter with one of their own. You share your dreams, they point out all the risks. At first, you'll dismiss it. You'll call it coincidence. You'll tell yourself they're just having a bad day. But deep down, a voice whispers the truth: they don't want to see you rise. Because your growth exposes their stagnation, your discipline magnifies their distractions. Your courage reminds them of the dreams they gave up on. And instead of confronting their own reflection, they project that discomfort onto you. This is not friendship. This is rivalry disguised as closeness. And the longer you ignore it, the more it poisons you. You start shrinking to make them comfortable. You stop sharing good news to avoid awkward tension. You start questioning your own worth because the people who should be cheering for you are sitting in silence. That's not humility. That's self-abandonment. You were not put here to downplay your light so others can avoid their shadows. You were not meant to wear guilt for growing. Real friends will stretch with you. They'll challenge you, not compete with you. They'll applaud your evolution, not resent it. Letting go of silent competitors isn't cruel. It's necessary, because their energy doesn't just affect your mood. It affects your momentum. The mind is wired for belonging, and when you sense disapproval from your inner circle, your brain slows you down. It sabotages your drive. Not because you're weak, but because you're trying to keep the peace with people who are secretly at war with your potential. You owe it to yourself to break that cycle. You owe it to your future to stop seeking approval from those who fear your power. Cut them off, not with anger, but with clarity. You don't need a confrontation. You don't need closure. You need peace. And sometimes peace begins with silence, distance, and a quiet decision to walk away. The people who are meant to rise with you won't fear your growth. They'll rise too. But those who can't handle your light were never meant to stand in your glow. Trust that, honor that, and let them go. Because the higher you climb, the clearer the sky becomes, and the less room there is for shadows pretending to be light. Some people don't compete with you. They consume you. They don't envy your success. They drain your soul. These aren't rivals. They're emotional saboteurs, masters of chaos disguised as friends. They move through your life like storms, wrecking peace, stirring conflict, and leaving you emotionally exhausted. They don't need a reason. Chaos is their comfort zone. And the more calm you build, the more they instinctively try to break it. They'll mask it as needing help, needing advice, needing you. But it's never about growth, never about healing. It's about dragging you into a cycle where you become their crutch, their therapist, their emotional dumping ground, until your own stability begins to crumble. They don't want to evolve. They want an audience. They want someone to witness their drama and validate their dysfunction. And every time you respond, every time you try to fix it, you get pulled deeper into a maze with no exit. They feed off the attention, the sympathy, the emotional availability you give freely while offering you nothing in return. They say they value your presence, but when your life gets heavy, they disappear. When you need support, they deflect. They want you strong, but only for their benefit, never for your own. At first, it feels noble to help them. You tell yourself you're being kind, being loyal. But slowly, the weight adds up. You feel drained after every conversation. Your mind is cluttered. Your emotions are hijacked. You stop focusing on your goals because their chaos becomes your daily reality. That's not friendship. That's spiritual erosion. And the longer you stay in it, the more you lose parts of yourself, your clarity, your ambition, your peace. You weren't born to carry everyone, especially not those who refuse to walk on their own. You are not selfish for protecting your energy. You are not heartless for needing space. Boundaries are not rejection. They're preservation. You can love people and still recognize when their presence becomes destructive. You can care without caring. And sometimes the most powerful act of self-respect is stepping back, not because you don't care, but because you finally care enough about yourself. That's strength. That's healing. That's growth. Cutting them off won't be easy. Emotional saboteurs are often the most manipulative. They'll guilt you, accuse you, make you question your worth. But don't fall for it. Their chaos is not your responsibility. Their wounds are not your burden. You can't save people who are addicted to their suffering. And you can't build a powerful life while constantly managing emotional fires that aren't yours to extinguish. Protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. Every moment spent untangling someone else's mess is a moment stolen from your mission, your clarity, your calling. Choose yourself, not out of selfishness, but out of necessity. Because when your mind is free, your path becomes clear. And when your heart is quiet, your power becomes unstoppable. Let go of the storm. Embrace the stillness. That's where your strength lives. Some people don't want your light, they want your fuel. They don't come with envy or chaos, they come with charm, with praise, with perfectly timed kindness that always seems to align with their needs. These are the opportunists. They study you. They learn your patterns. They know when you're most giving, most tired, most likely to say yes. They're not here to build with you. They're here to take. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Every favor, every conversation, every compliment, suddenly it all has strings. These aren't friends. These are transactions disguised as connect. And the more successful you become, the more magnetic you become to people like this. They show up when the spotlight hits you, when things are going well, when they sense momentum in your life. But when you fall, they vanish. When you're quiet, they don't check in. When you say no, their tone changes. Because their loyalty isn't to you, it's to what you can provide. Time, energy, resources, status. And if you're not useful, you're invisible. These people don't take with force, they take with flattery. They make you feel seen, valued, wanted, until you realize the attention was never about you. It was about access. The danger lies in how harmless they appear. How friendly, how he's supportive, But everything is conditional. Their love has a limit. Their respect has terms. And once you stop giving, they start leaving. That's when the truth surfaces. That's when you realize you were never chosen. You were used. And if you don't remove them, they'll keep draining you one small request, one little favor, one emotional obligation at a time. Not enough to notice right away, but enough to slowly bleed your focus, your energy, your drive. You are not here to fund the lifestyles of the ungrateful. You are not a backup plan. You are not a stepping stone. Your worth is not based on what you can give away. If someone only loves you when they need something, that is not love. That is leverage. And the longer you allow it, the more you teach them that your boundaries are for sale. They're not. You're allowed to say no without guilt. You're allowed to keep your resources for your vision. You're allowed to protect your energy from those who treat you like a convenience. Walking away from opportunists doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. Because when you stop feeding the ungrateful, you start nourishing your own potential. You create space for relationships built on mutual respect, not hidden agendas. You open the door to people who see your value even when you have nothing to offer but your presence. That's where the real ones live. Not in the shadows of convenience, but in the light of truth. Cut them off. Reclaim your worth and build a life where no one eats at your table unless they're bringing something to it. Letting go sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do. Because the people you need to cut off aren't strangers. They're the ones you laughed with, cried with, trusted. You told them your secrets. You made memories. You believed in them. That bond doesn't break without pain, even when you see the truth, even when the evidence is right in front of you. The mind resists. It tells you to give them another chance, to be patient, to hold on just a little longer. Because if you walk away, it feels like you're giving up. But what if the real betrayal isn't leaving them behind? What if it's betraying yourself by staying? Human nature clings to what's familiar even when it's harmful. That's how cycles begin. We normalize the tension, we excuse the silence, we pretend the discomfort is just a phase. But deep down, we know the body doesn't lie. It tightens around what isn't right. The soul grows restless when surrounded by the wrong energy. You feel it every time you question your instincts, every time you replay a conversation, wondering if you're overreacting. That's not paranoia. That's clarity fighting to be heard. And the longer you ignore it, the more numb you become. Until one day you wake up and wonder where your fire went, where your passion disappeared. And the answer is simple. It was slowly suffocated by people who never deserved to stand that close to your heart. You are not obligated to carry everyone into your future. Not everyone can breathe at your altitude. Some relationships are only meant for a season, and their expiration is not your failure. It's your evolution. You're allowed to outgrow people. You're allowed to want peace more than old stories. And you're allowed to protect your light without apology. Cutting someone off doesn't mean you hate them. It means you love yourself enough to stop bleeding for people who never once brought you a bandage. That decision doesn't come easy. The guilt will rise. The doubt will whisper. But strength isn't the absence of emotion. It's choosing clarity in the presence of it. It's standing firm in your truth when everything in you wants to run back to comfort. It's saying, "This is enough," and meaning it. You don't need to explain. You don't need permission. You need honesty with yourself. If someone constantly drains you, uses you, or makes you question your worth, they've already shown you who they are. It's your turn now to show yourself who you are. Someone who doesn't settle. Someone who doesn't negotiate with disrespect. Someone who is done waiting for others to value what they were never capable of appreciating. This is your turning point. Not with anger, not with revenge, but with quiet, grounded power. Because when you finally cut the wrong ones off, you don't just gain peace, you reclaim yourself. And that is the beginning of everything real. When you finally create distance from what was draining you, the silence will feel unfamiliar. You'll miss the noise, not because it brought peace, but became normal. But in that quiet, something powerful starts to rise. Clarity. The kind you couldn't find before, because the wrong people distort your vision. They make you question your instincts. They turn your strength into hesitation. But now, the fog lifts. The noise fades, and for the first time, you start to see yourself, not through their filter, but through your truth. What you allowed wasn't weakness, it was trust. What you tolerated wasn't stupidity, it was hope. But now, you've learned. and learning changes everything. This is the space where your real circle begins to form. Not from desperation, not from history, but from alignment. You stop craving connection that costs your peace. You stop chasing validation from people who can't recognize your value. And you start noticing the ones who speak life into your vision, not doubt. The ones who challenge you without trying to control you. The ones who celebrate your growth without feeling threatened. These people exist, but they don't show up when your life is full of noise and obligation. They appear when you make space. And space only comes when you remove what doesn't belong. Your energy is a magnet. When it's tied up in drama, envy, and manipulation, you attract more of the same. But when it's rooted in clarity, peace, and discipline, everything shifts. You begin to operate from strength instead of survival, from purpose instead of reaction. And suddenly the world around you responds differently. Not because it changed, but because you did. You start seeing red flags for what they are, not what you hope they'll become. You stop lowering your standards to keep people close. You realize your circle is not about quantity. It's about alignment. And alignment starts with you. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow. Every time you tolerate inconsistency, you tell the world that your peace is negotiable. Every time you ignore your intuition, you delay your growth. But now you know better. And knowing better demands doing better. That means having the courage to be alone until real connections show up. That means choosing depth over attention, truth over comfort, and respect over history. Because the ones who are meant to walk with you into your future won't need to be convinced. They'll rise with you, without fear, without ego, without resistance. The people who deserve a place in your life will never make you shrink. They'll push you higher, call you out with love, and stay grounded when the world shakes. That is the power of alignment, and you don't find it by accident. You earn it by clearing out everything that dims your light. This is how you build a circle that protects your vision, amplifies your voice, and holds space for your evolution. Not by adding more, but by finally letting go. The shift begins within. You can't build a powerful outer world while staying fragile on the inside. Cutting people off is only the surface. The real work is mastering the part of you that allowed them in to begin with. The part that ignored red flags. The part that mistook loyalty for love. The part that stayed silent just to keep the peace. If you don't confront that part, you'll keep repeating the same cycles with different faces. Detachment is not about becoming cold. It's about becoming clear. Clear about who you are, what you stand for, and what you no longer accept. It's the mindset that says, I no longer entertain energy that costs me my peace. That's not arrogance. That's self-respect. When you detach from what doesn't serve you, emotions lose their power to manipulate you. Guilt fades. Fear fades. The need to explain yourself fades. Because you no longer seek approval from people who never had your best interest at heart. You stop answering questions that come from entitlement, not care. You stop justifying boundaries that are rooted in your survival, and you stop feeling responsible for how others react to your growth. That's emotional freedom. That's mental clarity. That's the power that can't be bought or borrowed. It's built through discipline, through awareness, and through ruthless honesty with yourself. There will always be people who misunderstand your silence, people who call your boundaries selfish. Let them. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to live in alignment with truth, with purpose, with strength. And that means walking away from anything that forces you to betray yourself. It means recognizing that your peace is a priority, not a privilege. And it means standing tall, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when the old version of you wants to go back and fix what was never your job to fix. Growth is not just becoming more, it's becoming less of what you're not. Less reactive, less available to chaos, less dependent on false validation. You begin to notice the power in stillness, the sharpness in solitude, the strength in being unshakable. You don't respond to every invitation into drama. You don't explain your every move. You move with purpose, and that alone speaks volumes. You become the calm in the storm, the one who can't be provoked, the one who sees clearly and chooses wisely. That's a different level of power, one that doesn't need noise to be felt. This is what it means to step into your next chapter with authority, to stop asking for permission, to stop negotiating with people who can't meet you where you are. You are not here to be consumed. You are not here to stay small. You are here to evolve, to elevate, and to protect the energy that fuels your mission. And the moment you stop explaining yourself to those who benefit from your confusion, you reclaim your focus. That's the beginning of unshakable power. That's how legacies are built. From the inside out. There comes a moment when clarity becomes louder than doubt, when your silence holds more power than your explanations, when you stop asking who deserves to stay and start deciding who no longer has access. This moment is not loud. It doesn't need an audience. It happens quietly inside the core of your being. A shift, a decision, the refusal to keep dimming your light to make others comfortable. That is when you take back everything you gave away without realizing: your time, your energy, your power, your peace. This is not the end of a friendship, a connection, or a season. This is the beginning of everything real. You no longer beg to be understood. You no longer shrink in the presence of insecurity. You no longer bend just to keep a place in someone's life who never intended to build with you. You stop trying to fix what was only meant to teach you. You stop blaming yourself for their inconsistency, and you stop believing that keeping the peace is worth breaking yourself. Some people needed to be removed so you could remember who you are, and what you are is not weak. What you are is not disposable. You are the standard. And now you rise with intention, not apology. Everything you were afraid to lose was never yours to keep. You don't lose real people by setting boundaries. You lose the ones who only loved you when you were easy to use. Let them leave. Let silence speak where words failed. Let distance reveal what closeness tried to hide. The right people will never punish you for choosing yourself. They will honor it. And the ones who don't, let them show themselves. Let their absence become your answer. Because anyone who needs access to every part of you just to feel in control never saw your value to begin with. You are not here to be available to everything. You are not here to carry the weight of those who refuse to stand on their own. You are not here to be the emotional home for people who would leave you homeless. You are here to build, to elevate, to protect the frequency that your future requires. Every person in your life is either helping you rise or holding you back. There is no neutral energy. And now you know the cost of ignoring that truth. Now you've seen what happens when you give without discernment, when you stay too long, when you love without boundaries. But you've also seen your strength. You felt the fire that rises when you finally choose peace over pressure. This is your power, the power to decide, to cut off what no longer aligns, to walk away without rage, to protect your energy without guilt, and to trust that what's ahead will never require you to betray yourself again. This isn't just a choice, it's a declaration. You're done shrinking. You're done explaining. You're done carrying what was never yours. From now on, you rise, unshaken, unapologetic, unstoppable. You already know who they are. The names, the faces, the patterns, they've been playing on repeat in your mind for far too long. You've second-guessed your instincts. You've softened the truth. You've delayed the decision, hoping they'd change, hoping the connection would redeem itself if you just gave it more time. But time only revealed more of what you were afraid to admit. The connection isn't broken, it's toxic. And every moment you wait, you trade your peace for their comfort. That is not strength. That is self-betrayal dressed up as loyalty. And the longer you stay silent, the more power you give away. There is a line that must be drawn. A line between who you were when you tolerated it and who you choose to become when you no longer do. The fear of walking away is temporary. But the regret of staying too long leaves a deeper scar. You don't need another sign. You don't need permission. You already have the truth. And the truth is this: not everyone gets to go with you. Not everyone deserves access to your new season. Growth demands sacrifice, and often that sacrifice is letting go of the people you thought would walk beside you forever. Some will be confused by your distance. Some will call it ego. Others will try to manipulate you back into their comfort zone. That is how you'll know the decision is right. Real respect doesn't punish you for protecting your peace. Real love doesn't shrink when you rise. It expands. It evolves with you, and when it can't, when it resists your growth, when it stifles your progress, that's not love. That's control. The moment you stop negotiating your peace for someone else's comfort, you reclaim your life. This is your breakthrough. The decision you've avoided is the decision that will set you free. Cut them off, not out of hate, but out of clarity. Cut them off, not because you're cold, but because you're finally awake. You're not obligated to keep what wounds you. You're not required to explain why you no longer tolerate disrespect. You owe no one an apology for evolving. You owe yourself the freedom to live aligned with truth, with purpose, with power. Let it be known. From this moment forward, you are done. Done with pretending. Done with pretending. Done with shrinking. Done with hoping they'll become someone they've already shown you they're not. This is the chapter where your healing is no longer interrupted, where your focus is no longer stolen, where your light is no longer dimmed to protect fragile egos. You are not walking away from them. You are walking toward yourself, your peace, your clarity, your highest level. Anvil? Let this be the moment everything changes. Not because they said something new, but because you finally listened to what's been true all along. The greatest power you'll ever have is the power to walk away. Use it, not later, now, and never look back.